must follow the law. The law says...
Glorious. Is it a lawsuit? Probably. Why not?
Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to Buckle Up. It's the Law with Attorney Larry Forman. Folks, today we are going to be talking about Donna Adelson, and probably one of the last videos that I am going to make on that topic, thank God. Donna, in her infinite wisdom, hired one of the most incompetent attorneys I think we have ever seen. Jackie, bless her heart, had no idea what she was walking into, had no game plan, had no preparation, had no plan of action on how she's going to try and convince the jury to acquit Donna. She basically just reiterated the government's argument, saw what she tried to do, saw what the government tried to do, and kind of like said, you know what, you guys figure it out on your own, as she was pounding the table, trying to convince them, please don't convict my client, because the angrier I get and the louder I get, the more likely I am to win. Jackie, that's not how it works. I'm sorry to say, but criminal defense work does not work by pounding the table. You know what they say. If you got the facts, pound the facts. If you got the law, pound the law. If you don't have anything, pound the table. Or start screaming. We've seen it before. And we saw it again in Donna Adelson's trial. Well, now Donna, in her infinite wisdom, is blaming everyone but herself. No. It's like the Shawshank Redemption defense. What are you in here for? Lawyer effed me, you know? Only in this case, she's actually not blaming the lawyer, which is a little surprising. I mean, maybe that might be coming next. I don't know. Because if I were Donna, I would say, ineffective assistance of counsel, which, by the way, there are two different things. Incompetence and ineffective assistance of counsel are two different things. You can't argue on appeal incompetent counsel. You hired them. That's your problem. So if you hired a lawyer that didn't do a good job, that's a you problem. But Donna is actually doing something different. She is going after the judge, the nicest guy in the world, that gentleman who just, in a very calm voice, would simply ask things, and if counsel is ready to proceed, then go ahead, counselor. All right, folks, we are going to take a lunch. That guy, the nicest judge I have ever seen in like some of the latest trials that we've had. He's such a good guy. You're going after him? You really think that's gonna do you any favors? But not only that, Donna is also going after jurors. Now, one of the jurors, I think it was juror number 5, went on a show called Surviving the Survivors. And there was another juror that went on a TV news station. And before we continue, I do want to watch that clip with you. So let's go ahead. It's a short one. Let's watch it together and analyze it.
We're hearing from the jury that recently convicted Donna Adelson on 3 charges, including first-degree murder. I'm Mayor Sargent in downtown Tallahassee. One juror opens up about the deliberations that took place behind closed doors to reach the verdict that decided her fate. Donna Adelson's fate was decided by 12 jurors in just about 3 hours.
The defendant is guilty of first-degree murder.
Guilty on all 3 charges, including first-degree murder, for the death of her ex-son-in-law and former FSU professor Dan Markell. One of those jurors, juror number 6, Evan Higginbotham, played a key role in those deliberations, where he says jurors methodically went through each count to decide on the verdict.
Going in, I was leaning towards guilty after seeing all the evidence laid out. For count 1, we spent probably the first hour, 45 minutes or 2 hours of our 3 and some change that we were in there just talking about the first count and laying out all the evidence and digging through everything that we wanted to go back and look at again.
Evans says the reason for that guilty verdict, the evidence, pointing to Rob Adelson, the estranged son of the family's testimony, phone records, and the bump operation.
Hey, go. Just want to give you this.
When an undercover agent blackmailed Donna to see what she knew about the murder.
The operation happened and she was handed that sheet of paper. Just taking the paper and putting it straight into her bag without looking at it. I'm not taking anything from anyone and putting it in my bag before looking at it.
Did you have discussion about any other suspect?
Common sense. Common sense plays a role, because when you are handed a piece of paper on the street, like, hey, I have something on you, and you go, okay, I'll look at it later. Obviously people are going to think, well, guilty conscience, guilty mind, right? If she would have been like, I'm sorry, I'm not taking this. Who are you? What do you want from me? I'm calling the police. That would have been a completely different ballgame.
Not really. We briefly spoke about Wendy Adelson, but she's not the one on trial, so we tried to stay focused and follow the jury instructions and stay only discussing Donna's part in this.
Donna Adelson is the fifth person to be convicted for the murder of Markel. There's been lots of speculation on whether Donna's daughter and Dan Markel's ex-wife, Wendy Adelson, could be arrested next. I spoke with State Attorney Jack Campbell to see where prosecutors stand with the case.
We will continue to work and make sure that every person who is responsible, we can hold them accountable. Now, I can't predict where that will lead us right now, but I can guarantee you that we're not stopping looking at the evidence.
Because of this experience, Evan, who's only 24 and in school, tells me he's changed his career path.
I came out on the other end of this fully. I actually went and changed my major. I've been talking about this now. I'm now going for a pre-law degree.
Really?
From engineering.
Next steps in the Donna
Good for
Adelson
you.
case
From
include her
engineering.
sentencing. That has not happened yet. After the verdict was announced Thursday, Dan Markel's parents, Phil and Ruth, asked Judge Stephen Everett for the maximum sentence. A case management has been set for October 14th at 2:30 p.m. In downtown Tallahassee, Mayor Sargent, ABC 27.
Have you or someone you love been injured as a result of someone else's negligence? Or worse, you lost a loved one because of it? I am attorney Larry Forman, and myself and my team of trial lawyers are ready to fight for you and get you the maximum compensation allowable under the law. We know the system. We know how to win anywhere in the United States, 24 hours a day. Call 1-844-77-4-HURT. That's 1-844-77-4-HURT. And let's get you every dollar you deserve. Dial that number and buckle up. Let's win this ride. October 14th, that is when Donna is going to be officially sentenced, and she's probably going to spend the rest of her life in prison. However short or long that may be, that's all up in the air. But at the end of the day, justice was done. But now Donna, like I said, she's going after the judge. And two jurors, maybe this one and the one that went on Surviving the Survivors. Now, we're not going to review that video because I want to keep this video as short and sweet as possible to simply address any possible arguments that Donna may have. And so far, she's really not raising anything of value. She has simply asked to interview juror number 5 and juror number 6. Juror number 5 was on Surviving the Survivor, and we just heard from juror number 6, who seems like an intelligent young man who even changed his career path. I mean, can you imagine going into a trial and going and changing your career path from engineering to pre-law? That is a giant leap when you really think about it. But hey, good for him. I'm happy and excited for him, and I hope that he is going to enjoy his new choice as a future profession. Now, specifically, Donna is actually not naming this juror. She's naming jurors number 5 and jurors number 7 in her motion. Juror number 7 was actually the foreperson, and she's the one who came out on TikTok without revealing her name and anonymously announcing to the world about her experiences after serving on the jury that convicted Donna Adelson just a couple of weeks ago. Now, juror number 5 specifically stated one of the considerations that they debated when they were deliberating was Donna Adelson's reactions to the evidence as they were being brought in during trial, which is quite interesting, especially because a defendant's reaction to the evidence is not something that they're supposed to consider when deliberating. I mean, that is an instruction the judge gives, but jurors are going to be jurors. Jurors are going to make their determinations based on the totality of the circumstances. You remember Jackie in her closing argument as she was pounding the table, she was trying to take and cherry pick certain pieces of evidence in isolation and say, look, obviously she's not guilty because blah, and she's not guilty because blah, and she's not guilty because blah. But if you take it all in concert, it tells a completely different story. And Jackie obviously failed to do that because Donna Adelson was convicted of these charges. So I think maybe the juror should have kept those comments to themselves. I don't know. I don't think it's going to be enough to overturn a verdict. If that was just one of the things that they considered, I highly doubt that juror number 7 only considered Donna's reactions to the evidence and everything else was moot. That would probably be something that could overturn a verdict, theoretically. But juror number 5 was not the only one deliberating. There were 12 jurors deliberating, and juror number 7 was the foreperson, as I've said. So juror number 5, even though they may have made some considerations and given some leaning towards Donna's reactions to the evidence, so long as they didn't completely base the entirety of their deliberations, the entirety of their verdict, just based on her reactions, which I highly doubt is the case, as you've just heard the gentleman speak, juror number 6, you have to remember, folks, jurors are people. We all have our BS sensors. We all have our little antennae always going off, always wondering, always prodding, always poking, always analyzing as we are listening to testimony, as we're listening to evidence, especially in a case where an individual is so many steps removed but is directly involved in the killing of another. So it's a very, very, very sad case. And I don't think Donna is going to prevail on her motion for a new trial. I don't even know if the court is going to grant her the ability to review and interview these jurors that her lawyers are now requesting to interview, because that is not usually part of the process. Again, the courts will bend over backwards in order to prevent the lawyers from meddling in and, piercing that veil of getting in touch with the jurors directly. It's always been like that. It always will be. The one time I remember when that was actually pierced was in the Alec Murdaugh trial, when the jurors had to come in and testify as to their involvement with Becky Hill. Remember Becky Hill? Becky Hill actually had to take the witness stand and testify before a judge that reviewed the entirety of the trial record to determine whether or not there has been juror meddling, juror interference. And it was this close. I think we were this close to the judge actually saying, yes, Becky Hill, you influenced directly, because she was talking to the jurors, telling them, don't listen to Alec when he takes the witness stand. Don't pay attention to what he has to say, that sort of thing. And that is despicable. That is beyond despicable. She helped convict. Even if he was guilty, it doesn't matter. Being found guilty after a clerk, a person with a position of power, intervenes and tries to influence wrongfully the judicial process, there is no place for that. And Becky, of course, the brilliant woman that she is, do you know the reason she got caught? She wrote a book. She wrote a book about the trial, and the jurors were like, no, I'm sorry. And they started coming forward, and this whole process began to take shape. So here, I don't think it's going to rise to that level, simply because the jurors may be considered some extraneous factors. You know how often jurors decide the case based on everything but the evidence themselves? Let me tell you a quick war story. I tried a case here in Kentucky, out east, in a very, very, very small county. I had 2 witnesses that testified, my client and his brother, who is a doctor. And for the state, I believe there were 2 police officers that testified. There's definitely 1, possibly 2. I don't recall. It's been a few years ago. At the end of the case, my client unfortunately got convicted. It was a DUI. He was convicted, no jail time, young guy in his early 20s. I'll never forget, he actually tried to tip me on my way out, like I was a server. He tried to give me an extra, like 100 or something. I said, dude, keep it to yourself. Come on, go spend it on something else. You're not going to jail. You're welcome. At least we got that going for you. But before that happened, I went over to the jurors and I asked the court if I may speak to them. And sometimes judges will allow you to speak to the jurors as the defense attorney. Whether you win, whether you lose, it doesn't matter. And sometimes jurors will leave. Usually they stick around. Sometimes I'll at least get a handful of them, which is all I need. And when I try cases in district court, we have a panel of 6 people. And so I spoke to these 6 jurors and I asked them, why did you all convict? Just out of curiosity, not here to change your mind, not here to prod, just curious. And I swear to you, a woman came forward. She may have been the foreperson. I don't remember. She came forward and she said, I'll never forget this. One of the facts that came out in the trial was that my client was driving. The reason he was driving through that county, because he was supposed to go east, but he was going north. And his testimony was that his phone charger was not with him. He forgot his phone charger, so his phone died. So he didn't have access to GPS because his car does not have GPS, and that's why he was in that particular part of the state, off his trajectory. And the juror said, I have a son. This is almost a direct quote. I have a son about his age. He would have never forgotten his charger, so I didn't believe him. I'm sorry, what? You want to talk about extraneous factors being brought into the jury room? Do you think I could have filed a motion for a new trial and won it just because they've considered the fact that she thought my client was a lying sack of crap? That was her own personal opinion because she was comparing my client to her own child? Folks, things happen. Jurors, when they deliberate, they consider all sorts of things. They bring in life experiences. I had another one. It was a combination marijuana and alcohol. The jury ended up convicting, also no jail time. And I asked them at the end, why did you convict? And they said, well, there was one juror that when they deliberated said when they were younger, they experimented with alcohol and marijuana. And the both levels were super low, under 0.08, well below 0.08. It was almost half of it. And it was like 2 or 3 nanograms per milliliter, super, super duper low levels. And they said, well, we kind of talked in the back and, Johnny Juror, or whatever you want to call them, said they experimented with alcohol and marijuana in combination. And yeah, they kind of have a compounding effect on one another. So we thought to err on the side of caution and convict. What can you do? We had expert testimony that was completely destroyed. Government brought in the expert, not myself. And sometimes you lose, folks. That's what happens. Sometimes jurors see through the BS. Sometimes jurors make up their own mind. Sometimes jurors make their decision based on their own life experiences. Sometimes they're going to compare your client to their own personal people in their lives. And here's the thing, folks. Every time I have lost and every time I have won, I've respected the jurors' decisions. Because there is no better system in the United States than to have 6 or 12, if it's a felony, people from the community to listen to the evidence and determine independently whether or not a crime has been committed and whether or not they are guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, which is the standard for criminal cases in the United States of America. So when I say Donna got what she deserved, that's exactly what I mean. Trying to file this new motion to try and unravel the process, to try and redo and undo what the jury has done just because they have considered some extraneous factors outside of what they were supposed to, the evidence, if you will. It happens all the time. All the time. Usually jurors just don't talk about it. These jurors may have come out and said it, so what? So now we know. Now we have confirmation. So be it. Donna is further alleging in her motion that the credibility of the jailhouse informants should be questioned, which is, again, it's a question for the jury, not for the court. So I'm not sure why she's bringing that up, but she's trying. Donna is also alleging that the prosecutors focus too much on speculative evidence and speculation and impermissibly stacking of inferences. What does that even mean? Circumstantial evidence is evidence. And just because collectively everything that you've done sounds like it's pointing the finger at you, like because you did it and you don't like it, is not an argument. Does that make sense, Donna? Or no? There were also moments when the gallery laughed at some of the rulings that the judge was making, and Donna is alleging in her motion that that courtroom atmosphere was not conducive for her as a defendant or something. I still can't exactly understand what she's referring to be completely honest, because it doesn't make any sense. You know, back in the day, like 100 years ago, people used to come to court because that was entertainment. People literally would line up and try and get a seat, especially in those popular trials where like Clarence Darrow maybe was representing someone. It was a show. Arguments were long. Cross-examinations were long. Closing arguments would drone on for hours. You know, I remember in Leopold and Loeb, which was a sentencing argument, not to a jury, Clarence Darrow successfully made the judge cry. That's a defense lawyer. That's a criminal defense lawyer. Someone who is able to appeal to emotion. Instead of getting the death penalty, they each got life imprisonment. The two Harvard men who thought they could commit the perfect crime and, of course, got caught almost immediately. So, folks, this is not going to go anywhere. Donna is going to fail. It's going to fall on its face. The motion for a new trial is going to get denied. Throwing everything on the wall and seeing what sticks is a terrible method of practicing law. But her lawyers are probably getting paid for all of this. Donna obviously wants it done, so she's paying for it to get done. I predict it's going to be a complete nothing burger. There will be no trial. Maybe she'll get the interviews. Maybe the judge will indulge. The judge can even say, no, you don't even get to interview the jurors. Sorry, goodbye. You're not entitled to it. And that would be the end of the case. And Donna is going to be sentenced, like we said, on October 14th. And that is going to be the end of this case. And Wendy, and possibly and hopefully Harvey, you guys are next. As you saw in the video, the Attorney General is deciding to make sure that all of their T's are crossed and I's dotted before they come after anybody else who may be responsible for the death of Dan Markel. May you rest in peace, brother. We lost a good one. Until then, folks, I will see you all in the next video. I love you all, and I hope to see you then. Don't forget to like this video, comment below, and subscribe to the channel.